Right now, at this very second, your cat is doing something that has baffled neuroscientists, evolutionary biologists, and animal behaviorists for decades. It's looking at you. And here's the thing. It has no idea what you are. Not really. Not in the way you think. You believe your cat loves you. You believe your cat recognizes you as its owner, its companion, maybe even its best friend. According to Dr. John Bradshaw, one of the world's leading anthrozoologists, a scientist who literally wrote the book on cat behavior at the University of Bristol, cats do not mentally categorize their owners as humans. They treat us as large, clumsy, hairless cats. That's it. We're just weird cats to them. Cats are one of the only domesticated animals that never evolved a fundamentally distinct cognitive category for human. Dogs know you're not a dog. Horses know you're not a horse. Even goldfish can distinguish between human faces. But your cat? Your cat is essentially treating every interaction with you as if you are just a very bizarre member of its own species. And that, right there, that one jaw-dropping fact, is just the surface of a rabbit hole so deep, so strange, so scientifically mind-bending, that by the time this video is over, you will never look at a cat the same way again. Welcome to the quiet science of cats. I'm so glad you're here. Before we go any further, smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. I'm serious. It is the most comprehensive, scientifically grounded deep dive into cat science ever made on YouTube. You do not want the algorithm to lose you somewhere in the middle. Subscribe, ring that bell, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from, and what time is it? I genuinely want to know. Are you watching this at 2 a.m. because you couldn't sleep, and a cat is sitting on your chest? Or are you in a cafe somewhere in Tokyo, or Nairobi, or São Paulo? Drop it down there. The comments section of this video is going to be something special. Let's talk about what we actually know about cats, because it is far weirder and far more wonderful than most people realize. We have shared our homes with cats for roughly 10,000 years. But here's what's shocking. Despite that enormous span of time, scientists only began seriously studying cat behavior and cognition in the late 20th century. For most of recorded history, we studied dogs, we studied horses, we studied primates. Cats, we mostly assumed they were simple, antisocial, and basically uninterested in us. That assumption, it turns out, was catastrophically wrong. In the past 20 years, and especially in the last decade, a wave of extraordinary research has rewritten everything we thought we knew about the domestic cat. And the picture that has emerged is one of the most fascinating in all of biology. Here's your roadmap for the next 3.5 hours. We're going to start with the basics. What a cat actually is, biologically and evolutionarily. Then we're going to go deeper into their senses, which are so far beyond human capacity, they're almost alien. Into their communication system, which scientists only cracked in the last 15 years. Into their emotional lives. Yes, cats have rich emotional lives, and the neuroscience behind them. Into their dreams. Into the mathematical precision of their movements. Into the hidden superpower that even cat experts still can't fully explain. And then, in the final stretch, we're going to zoom out, and we're going to ask a question that might genuinely change how you see yourself. What does the fact that we love cats so deeply tell us about us? Let's begin. What if I told you that the animal curled up on your sofa right now is, from an evolutionary standpoint, an almost unmodified apex predator? Think about that for a second. When we domesticated dogs, we transformed them profoundly. We selectively bred them over thousands of generations into hundreds of wildly different shapes. From the tiny Chihuahua to the enormous Great Dane. We changed their brains. We changed their social instincts. We fundamentally redesigned them to serve us. But cats? Cats essentially domesticated themselves. In 2007, a landmark genetic study published in the journal Science by Dr. Carlos Driscoll and his team at the National Cancer Institute traced the origin of all domestic cats on Earth to a single population of wildcats, Felis sylvestris libica, in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, approximately 10,000 years ago. And here's the kicker. Genetically, your domestic cat is so close to that original wildcat that they can still interbreed. Your house cat is, in every meaningful biological sense, a wildcat that decided our grain stores were worth sticking around for. Think of it like this. Domesticating a dog is like redesigning a car from the ground up. You change the engine, the chassis, the entire form. Domesticating a cat is like putting a little bow tie on a Lamborghini and calling it tame. The engine is still a Lamborghini engine. Everything under the hood is still a precision killing machine. And understanding that fundamental truth, that your cat is essentially a miniaturized apex predator wearing social behaviors like a costume, is the foundation for everything else in this video. Let's talk anatomy. The domestic cat, Felis catus, belongs to the family Felidae, the cat family, which includes lions, tigers, leopards, cheetahs, jaguars, cougars, and 37 other species. Every single one of these animals shares a remarkably similar body plan, and that body plan is optimized with almost frightening precision for one thing: hunting. Cats are obligate carnivores. This is not just a preference, it is a biological imperative. Unlike dogs, who are omnivores and can thrive on a plant-based diet, cats cannot synthesize certain amino acids, most critically taurine and arginine, that they can only obtain from animal tissue. A cat that doesn't eat meat won't just be unhealthy. It will go blind. Its heart will fail. It will die. Their entire digestive system, their nutritional biochemistry, their behavioral instincts, all of it is organized around the capture and consumption of living prey. They are not flexible about this. They are not negotiating. And yet, here's where it gets interesting. They chose to live with us. Why? The answer is almost embarrassingly pragmatic. Around 10,000 years ago, humans in the Middle East began storing grain. Grain stores attracted rodents. Rodents attracted wildcats. And wildcats discovered something wonderful. Living near humans meant a nearly unlimited supply of easy prey, without any of the territorial competition they'd face in the wild. The wildcats that were least stressed by human presence, the ones with slightly reduced fear responses to people, were the ones that stuck around. They were the ones that got to eat more. They were the ones that survived and reproduced. Over generations, we didn't select cats. They self-selected. The bold ones stayed. The timid ones fled. And gradually, over thousands of years of this self-selection pressure, you end up with an animal that is comfortable, genuinely comfortable, in close proximity to humans, but only on its own terms. And that phrase, only on its own terms, is going to echo through this entire video, because understanding it is the key to understanding cats. Stay with me, because in the next section we're going to talk about something that will completely rewire how you think about your cat's senses. Scientists have discovered that cats live in a sensory world so different from ours that it is genuinely alien. A world of ultraviolet light, subsonic rumbles, and magnetic fields. You are not going to want to miss this. I want you to do a thought experiment with me. Imagine for a moment that you and your cat are sitting in the same room, looking at the same scene. A window, a garden outside, the afternoon sun. You see a bright, colorful scene. Green leaves, a blue sky, maybe a red bird on a branch. Your cat sees something completely different. Your cat sees a world of shifting blues and yellows. Reds and greens look similar to them, washing out into muted tones. The bird, unless it moves, it almost disappears. Because a cat's visual system is not optimized for color. It is optimized for motion, for low light, and for something you have probably never thought about: ultraviolet light. In 2014, a study by Dr. Ron Douglas and Dr. Glenn Jeffrey at City University London discovered that cats, along with dogs, reindeer, and several other mammals, can see into the ultraviolet spectrum. This is light that is completely invisible to the human eye. Flowers have ultraviolet patterns invisible to us. Urine trails left by rodents glow in ultraviolet. Certain insects reflect ultraviolet light. Your cat may literally be seeing patterns, trails, and signals in your world that you are entirely blind to. They are perceiving a layer of reality that for you simply does not exist. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been watching your favorite movie your entire life, but it turns out there's a whole extra dimension to it, a parallel story playing out in colors you can't see. That's your cat's visual reality compared to yours. But vision is just the beginning. Let's talk about hearing. A cat's hearing range extends from about 48 Hz at the low end to an astonishing 85,000 Hz at the high end. Compare that to humans, who max out at around 20,000 Hz. This means cats can hear sounds that are so high-pitched, they are completely beyond human perception. They can hear the ultrasonic calls of rodents, frequencies that mice use to communicate with each other that are entirely silent to us. They can hear the rustle of a mouse in a wall from the next room over. And those ears aren't just passive receivers. Each of a cat's outer ears, called pinnae, can rotate up to 180 degrees, independently of each other. They have 32 muscles controlling each ear. You have 6. This lets cats perform a kind of acoustic triangulation, precisely locating the source of a sound to within 3 centimeters at a distance of 1 meter. That's extraordinary precision. Now let's talk about smell. A cat has approximately 200 million scent receptors in its nose. Humans have about 5 million. That's a 40-fold advantage. But it goes even beyond that, because cats possess a sensory organ that humans completely lack. The Jacobson's organ, also called the vomeronasal organ, located in the roof of the mouth. You've probably seen a cat do something strange. Open its mouth slightly after sniffing something, looking almost disgusted. This is called the Flehmen response, and what the cat is doing is drawing scent molecules directly into the Jacobson's organ to analyze them. It's essentially a second, specialized nose that's particularly sensitive to pheromones, the chemical signals that cats use to communicate everything from territory to reproductive status to identity. Every cat that has ever walked across your floor has left a chemical signature. Every object your cat rubs its face on has been marked with a specific scent cocktail. Your home, from your cat's perspective, is an extraordinarily rich text written in smells, a continuous, updating record of everything that has happened there. And then there are the whiskers. Whiskers, technically called vibrissi, are not just stiff hairs. They are precision sensory instruments. Each whisker is rooted in a follicle, packed with sensory nerve cells. They can detect changes in air currents. They can measure gaps. A cat instinctively knows whether an opening is wide enough for its body to pass through, because its whiskers span approximately the same width as the widest part of its body. Cut a cat's whiskers, and you impair its ability to hunt, navigate, and move through tight spaces. It's like removing your fingertips. Now here's where things get genuinely strange. There is accumulating, though not yet conclusive, evidence that cats may have a magnetic sense, a sensitivity to the Earth's magnetic field that allows them to orient themselves in space. This would explain the phenomenon that has mystified cat owners and scientists alike for decades, the ability of cats to find their way home across dozens, sometimes hundreds of miles of unfamiliar terrain. We'll come back to that phenomenon in detail later. It deserves its own section. But for now, absorb this. Your cat is not experiencing the same world you are. It is more accurate to say that you and your cat are sharing a physical space while inhabiting completely different experiential realities. You live in a visual, medium-frequency, human-scented world. Your cat lives in a world of ultraviolet light, ultrasonic whispers, magnetic currents, and a chemical library of scent messages that you cannot even begin to read. That is not your pet. That is an alien intelligence sharing your home. Coming up next, the purr. You think you know what purring means. You're wrong. Scientists have discovered that the purr is one of the most medically remarkable sounds in all of biology, and that it has properties that could literally heal broken bones. I am not exaggerating. What if I told you that your cat's purr operates at a specific acoustic frequency that has been shown in clinical studies to promote bone density, speed healing, reduce pain, and lower blood pressure? What if I told you that NASA has seriously studied vibration therapy, using the same frequencies as a cat's purr as a potential countermeasure for bone density loss in astronauts in zero gravity? You're not listening to a pet being content. You might be listening to a biological healing mechanism with millions of years of engineering behind it. Let's talk about the purr. First, the mechanics. How does a cat actually purr? For decades, scientists couldn't agree on the mechanism. Some thought it involved a special structure called the hyoid, a small bone in the throat. Others thought it was caused by turbulent blood flow in a large blood vessel near the diaphragm. The answer, confirmed by laryngeal muscle research in the 1970s and refined since, is both simpler and stranger than either hypothesis. Cats purr using rapid laryngeal muscle contractions. The muscles in the voice box dilate and constrict the glottis, the space between the vocal cords, approximately 25 to 150 times per second. This happens during both inhalation and exhalation, creating that distinctive continuous sound on both the in-breath and the out-breath. No other cat species can do this. The big cats, lions, tigers, leopards can roar. The sound of their purr-like vocalizations only happens on the exhale. The domestic cat's ability to purr continuously is unique among the Felidae family. The domestic cat's purr frequency ranges from approximately 25 to 150 Hz. Research published by Dr. Elizabeth von Miegenthaler of the Fauna Communications Research Institute in 2001 identified that these frequencies, particularly 25 to 50 Hz, correspond exactly to the therapeutic range of vibration known to increase bone density, promote healing of tendons and muscles, reduce pain, and decrease joint swelling. In physical therapy and sports medicine, vibration therapy using these exact frequencies is used to treat osteoporosis, muscle atrophy, and chronic joint pain. Your cat's purr is, in the most literal sense, a therapeutic medical device. But here is the evolutionary puzzle that makes this even more interesting. Cats don't just purr when they're happy or content. They purr when they are sick. They purr when they are giving birth. They purr when they are injured. They purr when they are dying. This is deeply strange if purring is simply a signal of contentment. Why would an animal in severe pain or mortal distress produce a contentment signal? The current best hypothesis, and this is genuinely elegant, is that purring evolved as a self-soothing and self-repair mechanism. Because cats are solitary hunters, they cannot afford to show weakness. Injury in the wild means vulnerability. A wounded cat needs to heal as fast as possible, and needs to do so quietly. The purr, with its bone density maintaining, inflammation-reducing vibrational frequencies, may have evolved precisely as a low-cost, low-signal way for cats to physiologically promote their own healing while minimizing the energy expenditure of active movement. Think of it like this. Your cat's purr is to its bones what exercise is to yours. A constant, low-level maintenance vibration that keeps the skeletal and muscular systems in repair. A biological maintenance protocol running in the background. Now, what about the effect on you? Multiple studies have documented measurable physiological effects of cat ownership, and specifically of cat purring, on human health. The most famous of these is a large retrospective study published in 2008 by Dr. Adnan Qureshi and colleagues at the University of Minnesota Stroke Center. The study, which analyzed 10 years of data on more than 4,000 Americans, found that cat owners had a significantly lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, specifically a 40% lower risk of heart attack compared to non-cat owners. The researchers could not fully explain the mechanism, but interaction with cats, including the sound and vibration of purring, was identified as a likely contributing factor. A cat sitting on your chest and purring is not just cute. It is, in a very literal and measurable sense, good for your heart. But I want to take you even deeper into the sound world of the cat, because the purr is only one of an extraordinarily sophisticated repertoire of vocalizations, and scientists only recently figured out what many of them mean. Here's a question I want you to hold on to. Did you know that cats essentially invented a language specifically to talk to humans? A language they don't use with other cats? Stick with me, because the answer to that question is in the next section, and it is one of the most remarkable things I've learned in researching this video. Here is a fact that genuinely astonished me when I first encountered it in the research. Adult cats in the wild almost never meow at each other. Read that again. Adult feral cats, cats that have never lived with humans, have been observed to use meowing almost exclusively in specific contexts. Kittens communicating with their mothers, and occasionally during high-stakes territorial confrontations. Adult cats communicating with adult cats? Mostly silence, mostly body language, mostly scent, minimal vocalization. But domestic cats meow at humans constantly. Dr. John Bradshaw's research, combined with studies by animal behaviorist Dr. Suzanne Schatz at Lund University in Sweden, who spent years recording and acoustically analyzing thousands of cat vocalizations, has led to a remarkable conclusion. Meowing is, in large part, a communication system that cats evolved specifically to interact with humans. It is not a language cats already had and adapted. It is a new communicative channel that emerged over the thousands of years of cat-human cohabitation, reinforced because it worked. When a cat meowed and a human responded, by feeding it, by giving it attention, that behavior was reinforced. Cats that meowed more got more of what they needed from humans. The meow is, in a meaningful scientific sense, a domestication artifact. A word invented specifically for you. Dr. Schatz's research is particularly remarkable. Working at Lund University's phonetics laboratory, she has been studying what she calls cat prosody, the melody and pitch patterns of cat vocalizations. Her work has revealed that different cats develop what amounts to a regional dialect, shaped by the vocal patterns of their specific human household. Cats who live with people who speak in higher-pitched, more melodic tones tend to develop higher-pitched, more melodic vocalizations. The cat is, in a very real sense, learning to speak a version of your language. But the meow is not the only tool in a cat's communicative arsenal. Let's go through some of the others. The chirp or chatter. You've probably heard this, the strange staccato clicking sound a cat makes when watching a bird through a window. The leading hypothesis is that this is a reflex rooted in the killing bite. Cats dispatch small prey with a precise bite that dislocates the os vertebrae in the neck, and the chatter may be an involuntary rehearsal of that jaw movement triggered by intense predatory arousal. Some researchers believe it might also be a form of acoustic mimicry, an attempt to sound like the prey. The trill or chirrup, a rolling bird-like sound usually used in greeting. Mother cats use this sound to call their kittens. When your cat trills at you as it walks into a room, it is, according to Dr. Bradshaw, essentially treating you like a kitten, a deeply affectionate gesture. The slow blink. This one isn't a vocalization, but it is one of the most important pieces of cat communication we know of. Multiple studies, including a 2020 paper by Dr. Corinne Macomb and Dr. Tasman Humphrey at the University of Sussex, have confirmed that slow blinking is a positive, effective signal. When a cat slowly closes and opens its eyes at you, it is communicating trust and positive emotional state. And crucially, when humans mirror this behavior back at cats, performing a slow blink while looking at the cat, cats are significantly more likely to approach the human. You can communicate friendliness to a strange cat simply by blinking slowly at it. This is not folk wisdom. This is peer-reviewed science. The tail-up signal. Cats who approach humans or other cats with their tail, held vertically, are signaling friendly, affiliative intent. This behavior is thought to have evolved specifically in the context of social group living. It's a non-threatening, approach-welcoming gesture. Feral cats in stable colonies use it with each other. Domestic cats use it with their humans. If your cat walks toward you with its tail straight up, it is performing one of its highest trust, most positive social signals. The head bunt. When a cat bumps its head against you, what's technically called bunting, it is depositing scent from glands in its forehead and cheeks onto you. This is an act of social bonding. It is marking you as part of its social group, its colony. From the cat's perspective, you and it share a group scent. You are family. And then there is the kneading. That rhythmic pushing of paws against a soft surface, sometimes called making biscuits. This behavior has its roots in kittenhood, when kittens knead their mother's abdomen to stimulate milk flow. Cats who knead as adults and retain this behavior into adulthood far more often around their human companions than with other cats are expressing a kind of deeply comfortable, safe, attached state. In evolutionary terms, this is a retained juvenile behavior that signals that the adult cat feels as safe and attached to you as it once did to its mother. Every one of these behaviors is a word in a language your cat invented partly for you. And if you learn to read it, and you absolutely can, your relationship with that animal will never be the same. We're about to enter what I consider the most mind-expanding section of this entire video. We're going to talk about the cat's inner life, its emotional world, its capacity for something that genuinely deserves to be called memory, coming up next. For most of the history of Western science, animal emotions were considered either irrelevant or non-existent. René Descartes, the 17th century philosopher and mathematician, famously argued that animals were essentially biological machines, automata. They responded to stimuli, but they did not feel. They did not suffer. They did not love. We now know, with a high degree of scientific certainty, that this was wrong. The 2012 Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, signed by a prominent international group of neuroscientists, neurophysiologists, and cognitive scientists, formally stated that non-human animals, including all mammals and birds, possess the neurological substrates for conscious experience. The emotional architecture of the human brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus, the anterior cingulate cortex, is not unique to humans. It is an ancient system, conserved across mammalian evolution. Your cat has it too. What does this mean in practice? It means cats experience something that is recognizably analogous to fear, pleasure, frustration, affection, boredom, and most controversially, but increasingly supported by the evidence, something resembling grief. Dr. Barbara J. King, an anthropologist at the College of William and Mary, and author of the book How Animals Grieve, has documented cases of cats that exhibited prolonged behavior changes, refusing to eat, searching the home, vocalizing persistently, following the death of a feline companion they had lived with for years. The methodology for studying animal grief is genuinely difficult. We cannot ask the animal what it's experiencing, but the behavioral signatures of grief are remarkably consistent across mammals, and cats exhibit them. Here's what will blow your mind about cat memory. A 2006 study by researchers at the University of Michigan tested what's known as episodic-like memory in cats, the ability to remember not just that something happened, but when and where it happened, and to use that memory to guide future behavior. Cats demonstrated robust episodic-like memory in these studies. But here is the kicker. Research by behavioral neuroscientist Dr. Claudia Fogazza has found that cats can recall specific actions performed by their human owners, a specific gesture, a specific sequence of behavior, and reproduce that action on command up to 10 minutes later. This was not just pattern recognition. This was the cat watching what you do, encoding it as a personal memory, and retrieving that memory to replicate your behavior. Your cat is watching you, and it is remembering. Let's talk about stress and anxiety, because this is enormously practically important for cat owners. Cats have what's called a low-stress coping threshold. They tend to internalize rather than externalize stress responses. A stressed dog barks, paces, destroys furniture. A stressed cat often goes quiet. It hides. It stops eating. It stops grooming, or conversely, overgrooms until it develops bald patches. It develops stress-induced cystitis, a genuinely painful inflammation of the bladder that has no infectious cause, caused entirely by psychological distress. Think of it like this. A cat's stress response is like a submarine running silent. Nothing on the surface seems obviously wrong, but deep down, systems are failing. The leading veterinary behaviorists in this field, including Dr. Corinne Overall at the University of Pennsylvania and Dr. Tony Buffington at UC Davis, who pioneered the concept of indoor cat syndrome, have argued that we dramatically underestimate the psychological suffering of domestic cats kept in environments that don't meet their behavioral needs. Cats need to hunt or do something that mimics hunting. They need vertical space. They need control over their environment. They need the ability to hide. They need, perhaps most critically, a predictable routine. Dr. Buffington's research on indoor cats found that disruptions to routine, changes in feeding schedules, new furniture, house guests, even a change in the owner's work schedule, were among the most potent triggers for stress-related illness in cats. Your cat does not just prefer routine. Its health depends on it. And now let's talk about what happens when your cat sleeps. Cats sleep between 12 and 16 hours per day on average. Some sleep up to 20 hours. This extreme sleep tendency is directly linked to their predatory lifestyle. Hunting, even when successful, is energetically expensive. So the evolutionary response is to conserve energy between hunts. But what's happening in those sleeping hours is genuinely remarkable. Cats experience REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, the sleep stage associated with dreaming. During REM sleep, recordings of feline brain activity show patterns consistent with the neural activity of active hunting behavior. Cats in REM sleep have been observed to twitch their paws, move their lips, and make small vocalizations. In 1965, researcher Michel Jouvet at the University of Lyon experimentally disrupted the mechanism that paralyzes the body during REM sleep in cats. The cats then physically enacted their dreams, stalking, pouncing, swatting at prey that wasn't there. Your cat is almost certainly dreaming, and it is almost certainly dreaming about hunting. So your cat has emotions, memories, and dreams. Okay, but here's the question I want to explore next. Is your cat actually attached to you? Or is it just tolerating you for the food? The answer, revealed by cutting-edge attachment theory research, is coming up, and it's going to surprise you. Let's address the oldest myth about cats head-on, the idea that cats are fundamentally solitary, non-social animals that merely tolerate humans in exchange for food. This narrative is so culturally entrenched that even many veterinarians and pet behaviorists still operate from it. Cats are independent. Cats don't really bond with people. Cats just want the food. You've heard all of these. Maybe you've said them? The science disagrees, powerfully. The definitive study on this question was published in 2019 by Dr. Kristen Vitale and colleagues at Oregon State University's Human-Animal Interaction Lab. Vitale and her team adapted the strange situation test, a canonical psychological assessment developed by Dr. Mary Ainsworth in the early 1970s to measure attachment security in human infants, and applied it to cats. Here's how the strange situation test works, briefly. A subject, in the original version, a toddler. In Vitale's version, a cat is brought into an unfamiliar room with its caregiver. The caregiver leaves. The subject is left alone with a stranger. Then the caregiver returns. By measuring the subject's behavioral responses, particularly what happens when the caregiver returns, researchers can categorize the relationship as one of 4 attachment styles: secure attachment, ambivalent attachment, avoidant attachment, or disorganized attachment. In human infants, secure attachment, where the child is distressed by the caregiver's absence, calmed by their return, and comfortable enough to explore the environment with the caregiver present, is considered the foundation of healthy psychological development. Vitali's results: approximately 64% of cats showed secure attachment to their human caregivers. This number is directly comparable to the rate of secure attachment seen in human infants, approximately 65%, and dogs, approximately 58%. The majority of cats, most cats, form a genuine, measurable, psychologically meaningful secure attachment bond with their primary human caregiver. This is not just liking someone for food. This is attachment, the same neurological and behavioral phenomenon that underpins mother-infant bonding in humans. Your cat, statistically, is attached to you in the truest scientific sense of the word. Moreover, Vitali's follow-up research found that these attachment styles are stable and persistent. They don't just reflect the mood of the day. The cat's attachment orientation toward its specific human is a durable feature of the relationship. But here's where I want to add some nuance, because science demands nuance. Cats are not the same as dogs in how they express this attachment. And this is important. Dogs typically show what's called hyperattachment. They track their owner's location constantly, seek proximity actively, and show acute distress when separated. Their social orientation is outward, toward the human. Cats show what researchers call independent attachment. They maintain a social bond, but they do not compulsively seek proximity. They are comfortable exploring away from the caregiver and do not require constant reassurance of the relationship. Think of it like this. A securely attached cat is like a confident, independent adult in a secure, long-term relationship. They don't need to be in the same room as their partner every second to feel okay. They can exist separately without anxiety. But the bond is absolutely real, and its disruption causes genuine distress. One more piece of evidence I want to share here. Dr. Alice Potter and Dr. Sarah Ellis at the International Cat Care Organization have studied what happens to cats in shelters environments where, by definition, their established human bonds have been severed. The stress markers they document: elevated cortisol, immune suppression, behavioral withdrawal, are precisely consistent with what we would expect from an animal experiencing a significant social loss. Shelter cats are not simply inconvenienced. They are, in a meaningful sense, grieving. The picture that emerges from all of this research is of an animal that is neither the emotionless machine that Descartes imagined, nor the slavishly devoted companion dog. The cat is something different, something more complex. It is an animal with genuine social needs, genuine emotional depth, and a genuine capacity for attachment, but one that expresses all of these things on its own terms, in its own time, in its own way. Learning to read those terms, learning to see the attachment that is there, even when it doesn't look the way we expect attachment to look, is one of the great rewards of living with a cat. I want to pause here, right at the 84-minute mark, and do something a little different. I want to talk about you. Not about cats as scientific objects, but about what the fact that you're watching this video, what the fact that so many of us are so deeply drawn to these animals, actually says about human nature. Because this is, I think, one of the most underappreciated questions in the science of human-animal interaction. Why cats? Out of all the animals on Earth, why has this particular species captured human hearts on such an extraordinary scale? There are approximately 600 million domestic cats in the world. They are the most popular pet globally by some counts. Internet culture has been arguably shaped more by cat content than any other single subject. Why? The evolutionary psychology answer is interesting. Cats possess what biologists call neoteny. They retain juvenile physical features into adulthood. Their faces are round. Their eyes are proportionally large. Their foreheads are domed. These are features that, in human infants, trigger what neuroscientists call the cute response, a neurologically measurable release of dopamine and oxytocin in the observer. We are biologically primed to find baby-faced creatures attractive and to want to care for them. This is not accidental. There is reasonable evidence that cats have actually evolved to exploit this response, that over thousands of years of cohabitation with humans, cats that triggered stronger cute responses in their human companions got better care and more resources. They were more likely to survive and reproduce. The cute face, in other words, may be partly a product of human selection pressure, an evolutionary adaptation, however unintentional, for attracting human caretaking. But there's something deeper here than just neoteny. Dr. Hal Herzog, an anthrozoologist at Western Carolina University and author of Some We Love, Some We Hate, Some We Eat, has spent his career studying the psychological dynamics of human-animal relationships. One of his central observations is that our relationships with animals serve as powerful mirrors for our own psychological states and needs. The qualities we project onto cats, independence, mystery, depth, a kind of dignified self-possession, are often qualities we secretly admire or secretly wish we had more of ourselves. Cats don't seem to need external validation. They seem comfortable with silence. They seem unapologetically themselves. In a culture of performance and social anxiety, the cat's apparent self-sufficiency reads as aspiration. And then there is the comfort dimension. Research on loneliness, a subject that has taken on enormous significance in public health discussions over the past decade, has consistently found that pet ownership, and specifically the ownership of animals that provide tactile warmth and a sense of being cared for and caring for something, significantly buffers the psychological effects of social isolation. The work of Dr. Julianne Holt-Lunstad at Brigham Young University has shown that loneliness is a significant predictor of premature death, more so than obesity and comparable to smoking. And the presence of an animal that seeks proximity, that purrs against your body, that waits for you, that registers your presence as meaningful, addresses something in the nervous system that human social connection also addresses. So here is the question I want you to sit with. What is your cat to you? Not in a sentimental sense, in a real sense. Is it a source of comfort in a world that often doesn't feel very comfortable? Is it a reminder that life is not all about productivity and performance? Is it the one presence in your day that doesn't demand anything from you, except to simply be there? These are not small things. These are central things. A cat has been at the center of human domestic life for 10,000 years. Not because it is useful, though it was, as a pest controller. Not because it is obedient, it demonstrably is not. But because something in its presence, in its particular combination of independence and warmth, mystery and familiarity, wildness and domesticity, speaks to something deep in us. It speaks to the part of us that still wants to be close to something that hasn't been fully tamed, that still carries something of the wild world in it. We'll come back to this at the end of the video. But hold that thought. Hey, we are just past the halfway mark of this video, and I just want to say, if you're still here, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Genuinely curious. Genuinely engaged. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It costs you nothing, and it means everything for this channel's ability to keep making content like this. And drop me a comment. What is the most surprising thing you've learned so far in this video? I read every comment. It is one of the most documented and least explained phenomena in animal behavior. A cat is lost, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds of miles from home. Weeks pass, sometimes months. And then, one day, the cat shows up at the front door. This is not anecdote. This is a documented, reproducible phenomenon, and in 2023, it received a level of rigorous scientific attention it has long deserved. Let me give you a few historical cases first, just so the scale of this becomes clear. In 1981, a cat named Mimin was reportedly separated from her owners in France while they were traveling, and found her way back to her home, a journey of approximately 1,300 kilometers. In 1997, a tabby named Tom walked more than 160 kilometers across Germany to return to his previous home after his family moved. These cases are not outliers. Cat behaviorists and veterinarians have documented hundreds of similar cases over the past century. So how do they do it? Multiple mechanisms have been proposed and studied. The first is olfactory navigation, the use of scent trails and territorial scent marking to track a known path back. This is plausible over short distances, but fails to explain navigations of hundreds of kilometers through completely unfamiliar terrain. The second is solar or celestial orientation, using the position of the sun or stars as a compass bearing. This has been demonstrated in birds and some insects, and is not out of the question for cats, given their sharp visual systems. But the most intriguing and scientifically least settled hypothesis involves magnetoreception, the ability to sense the Earth's magnetic field. A 2023 study published in the journal iScience, led by Dr. Kai Kasper at the University of Duisburg-Essen, found that domestic cats were significantly more likely to orient their sleeping position along the Earth's magnetic north-south axis than random chance would predict. This is consistent with magnetoreception, a sensory ability that has been confirmed in numerous other animals, including migratory birds, sea turtles, and sharks. If cats can sense the magnetic field, they have, in effect, a biological compass built into their bodies, a GPS that doesn't need satellites. The mechanism proposed for magnetoreception in most animals involves chains of magnetite crystals, a naturally magnetic iron mineral in sensory cells, usually in the skull or the inner ear. These crystals physically rotate in response to magnetic fields, triggering nerve signals that the brain can interpret as directional information. Think of it like this. Imagine having a compass needle embedded somewhere in your skull that you can feel, not as a visual indicator, but as a subtle bodily sense of direction. North feels slightly different from south. East is not quite like west. Your body just knows which way it is pointing, always, relative to the planet's magnetic poles. The evidence for this in cats is suggestive, but not yet definitive. The 2023 sleep orientation study is compelling, but the mechanism has not yet been directly demonstrated at the cellular level in feline tissue. This is an area where the science is genuinely in progress, and it is one of the most exciting open questions in feline biology. What we do know from GPS tracking studies of free-roaming cats, including a large citizen science project conducted by the BBC and the Royal Veterinary College, in which more than 100 cats were GPS tracked over 2 weeks, is that cats maintain extraordinarily precise spatial maps of their territories. Every significant landmark, every scent post, every pathway. They don't wander, they navigate. The average home range of a domestic cat in that BBC study was approximately 4 hectares, roughly 10 acres, but with enormous variation. Some cats roamed over 100 acres, and within those ranges, their movements were not random. They were the movements of an animal with a detailed mental map of its landscape. One more remarkable finding from the GPS studies. Cats frequently passed within meters of each other without any visible interaction, in what researchers termed time-sharing of shared territory. Cats that appeared, from their owners' perspectives, to have no social contact with neighborhood cats were, in fact, operating within a complex, coordinated territorial time-sharing system, avoiding conflict by scheduling their movements to minimize overlap. They were managing a social landscape that was completely invisible to their human owners. Your cat has a secret life, And it is far more complex than you imagined. Get ready. We are about to enter the deep territory. The next section is about something that even most cat researchers don't fully understand. It's the mathematical precision of the cat in motion, and the physics of how they always land on their feet. The answer involves quantum mechanics. I am being completely serious. If you drop a cat upside down from a height, it will almost always land on its feet. This is not a coincidence, and it is not magic. It is one of the most elegant examples of applied physics and neurobiology in the animal kingdom. The phenomenon is called the writing reflex, and understanding it properly requires us to engage with some genuinely sophisticated physics. Physics that was actually used in the early development of spacecraft attitude control systems. Here is the problem the cat has to solve. A falling cat is in free fall, zero, net external torque acting on its body. In physics, this means that its total angular momentum must be conserved. It cannot change the overall rotation of its body the same way that, say, a human could push off a surface. There is no surface to push off. It is in the air. It cannot change its total angular momentum, but it needs to rotate 180 degrees to land on its feet. How? The solution is elegant. A cat in freefall bends its body at the waist, dividing itself into two segments. It then rotates those two segments in opposite directions simultaneously, but by adjusting its moment of inertia, essentially how extended its limbs are, it can rotate them by different amounts. The front half of the body rotates a little. The back half rotates a lot. The net rotation is not zero. The cat arrives feet down. This sequence was first photographed by French scientist Étienne Jules Marey in 1894 using high-speed photography, one of the earliest applications of high-speed cinematography in science. Marey's photos were so precise that they allowed him to analyze the writing reflex frame by frame, and they remain scientifically important documents to this day. The mathematical formalization of how a cat can change its orientation without changing its angular momentum became a genuine research area in control theory, the branch of engineering that deals with how systems regulate themselves. In the 1990s, the mathematics of the cat problem was directly applied to the design of attitude control systems for satellites, how a spacecraft can reorient itself in the vacuum of space without external propulsion. The writing reflex in cats operates at approximately 0.3 seconds from a drop height of about 30 centimeters. The vestibular system, the balance organ in the inner ear, detects the orientation of the head relative to gravity. The brain then initiates the writing sequence before the cat is even consciously aware it is falling. It is an automated, pre-programmed physical solution to a problem in rotational mechanics, executed faster than conscious thought by a neurological system that is essentially running a physics simulation in real time. Your cat's nervous system is doing college-level applied mechanics at reflex speed. The cat's extraordinary physical capabilities don't stop at the writing reflex. Consider the gait. Cats are among a small number of animals, including camels and giraffes, that use a pacing gait. When walking, they move both legs on the same side of the body simultaneously, left front, left rear, then right front, right rear. This is energetically efficient and minimizes body sway, which is important for animals that need to move silently through terrain while hunting. Their retractile claws, which are extended voluntarily for climbing, gripping, and fighting, and retracted the rest of the time to preserve their sharpness, are a triumph of biological engineering. The retraction mechanism uses a system of elastic ligaments that passively hold the claw in its retracted position. Extending the claw requires muscular effort. Retracting it does not. This means that a cat's claws are always sharp, never worn down by contact with the ground, and can be deployed with extraordinary speed. The spine. A cat's vertebral column is far more flexible than a human's. While a human spine allows for perhaps 40 to 50 degrees of rotation between segments, the feline spine, with its greater number of elastic intervertebral discs and more loosely structured vertebral facets, allows for much greater extension and flexion. This is what gives the cat its characteristic fluidity of movement. When a cat runs at full speed, its spine acts as a spring, coiling and releasing with each stride to dramatically increase its effective stride length. The cheetah, the fastest land animal on Earth, achieves approximately 50% of its speed from spinal flexion alone. The domestic cat uses the same mechanism at smaller scale. The top speed of a domestic cat is approximately 48 kilometers per hour, faster than the fastest human sprinter. The physics of the cat in motion is a graduate-level engineering problem executed with casual, instinctive grace. Every time your cat jumps from the counter to the floor, a movement so routine it barely registers, it is performing a feat of applied physics that human engineers spent decades trying to understand well enough to program into robots. We've covered the senses, the language, the emotions, the physics. Now we are going to go somewhere that will put all of this into a context you will not expect. We need to talk about what cats are doing to the ecosystem and the extraordinary, controversial scientific debate that has erupted around it. This section might make you uncomfortable. Good. What if I told you that the animal we've been talking about for 2 hours, this creature of extraordinary intelligence, emotional depth, and physical elegance, is also, simultaneously, one of the most ecologically destructive invasive species in the history of the planet? This is not an attack on cats. It is not a reason to love them less. It is an invitation to hold two truths simultaneously, which is, incidentally, the hallmark of a mature scientific understanding of the world. Here are the numbers. A 2013 study published in Nature Communications by Dr. Scott Loss and colleagues at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute estimated that free-roaming cats in the United States alone kill between 1.3 and 4 billion birds and between 6.3 and 22.3 billion mammals annually. These are not small numbers. For context, that's more birds killed by cats each year in the U.S. than by all wind turbines, vehicles, and buildings combined by a very large margin. Cats are directly responsible for the extinction of at least 63 wildlife species, 40 birds, 21 mammals, and 2 reptiles, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List. This makes the domestic cat one of the most ecologically impactful invasive species in recorded history, comparable to rats and snakes in its effect on island ecosystems. Some of the rarest birds on Earth, including the Stevens Island wren, the Socorro dove, and multiple Hawaiian species, have been driven to extinction entirely or in part by feral and free-roaming cats. This data has generated significant controversy, both within the scientific community and in the wider public discourse. Some researchers, including Dr. Peter Mara at Georgetown University and author of Cat Wars, The Devastating Consequences of a Cuddly Killer, argue that free-roaming cats pose a genuine conservation crisis that demands urgent and significant policy responses, up to and including culling of feral cat populations. Others, including some wildlife managers and many animal welfare advocates, dispute both the estimates and the proposed solutions. The scientific debate is real and ongoing. The numbers from the 2013 Loss et al. Study, while widely cited, have been criticized for their wide confidence intervals and methodological assumptions. More conservative estimates still put cat predation in the billions of animals annually, a number that is, by any measure, ecologically significant. What are we to do with this? Think of it like this. The issue of free-roaming cats is a collision between two completely valid sets of values: the value of individual animal welfare, including the welfare of cats and the birds they kill, and the value of species and ecosystem conservation. These values don't always point in the same direction, and navigating that tension requires more than feelings. It requires data, nuance, and the willingness to acknowledge complexity. The most evidence-supported recommendation from conservation biologists is something cat owners can genuinely do: keep your cats indoors, or provide them with outdoor access through secure, enclosed spaces called catios that prevent hunting. Indoor cats live, on average, significantly longer than outdoor cats, an average of 10 to 15 years for indoor cats versus 2 to 5 years for outdoor feral cats, due to reduced exposure to vehicles, disease, and predators. Keeping your cat indoors is, simultaneously, better for the cat and better for the ecosystem. This is one of those rare situations where the right thing to do for wildlife and the right thing to do for your cat align perfectly. I bring this up not to make you feel bad, but because a full scientific understanding of cats has to include this dimension. The cat is not simply a cuddly companion. It is an apex predator that has been distributed globally by human activity, operating in ecosystems it did not evolve in, with consequences that are genuinely significant. Honoring the full reality of what a cat is, including the parts that are ecologically uncomfortable, is part of taking the science seriously. We've talked about what cats do to birds. Now let's talk about what cats do to you. Specifically, what they do to your brain. I am not speaking metaphorically. There is a single-celled parasite called Toxoplasma gondii that can only complete its sexual reproductive cycle in the gut of a cat. To reproduce, it needs to get from wherever it currently lives, typically in the brain of a rodent, back into a cat. And the way it has evolved to do this is one of the most disturbing and fascinating things in all of parasitology. Toxoplasma gondii, when it infects a rodent, makes specific, targeted modifications to the rodent's brain, particularly in the neural circuits associated with fear of cats. An infected rat loses its natural aversion to cat odor. More than that, research by Dr. Joanne Webster at Imperial College London and later by Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University has found that infected rats are actually attracted to cat odor. They seek out areas that smell of cat urine. They become, in effect, behavioral marionettes being controlled by a parasite that needs them to walk into a cat's mouth. Approximately 1/3 of the global human population is estimated to be chronically infected with Toxoplasma gondii. Most infections are latent. The parasite sits dormant in brain tissue in cysts, producing no obvious symptoms in immunocompetent people. But a controversial and substantial body of research, pioneered by Czech parasitologist Dr. Jaroslav Fleger at Charles University Prague, has found that chronically infected humans show measurable statistical differences in psychology and behavior. Slightly elevated risk-taking, reduced reaction times, altered neurotransmitter levels, and in men, slightly elevated testosterone. Fleger's provocative hypothesis: the same behavioral modification that makes infected rodents seek out cats may, in a weaker and less directed form, be operating in the human brains that Toxoplasma has colonized. I want to be careful here, because this is an area where the science is genuinely contested. Fleger's research is real and has been replicated in some respects. The statistical associations between Toxoplasma infection and certain personality traits have appeared in multiple independent datasets. But the effect sizes are small, and we do not yet have a clear causal mechanism that would explain how a behavioral modification clearly evolved for rodent-cat interaction would produce coherent behavioral effects in the very different neural architecture of a human brain. The most cautious interpretation: Toxoplasma may have subtle effects on human neurochemistry that are detectable at a population level, but not easily perceptible at the individual level. It is probably not controlling infected humans in any dramatic sense. But the possibility that a parasite carried by cats has, for millennia, been quietly tinkering with human neurochemistry is genuinely extraordinary to contemplate. Beyond Toxoplasma, the relationship between cats and the human microbiome is an emerging area of research with significant potential. Research published in journals including Science of the Total Environment has found that cohabiting with cats significantly alters the human skin. Microbiome, the communities of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that live on and in our bodies. Cats and their owners share microbial species at rates that suggest significant ongoing microbial exchange. What this means for human health is still being studied, but the early indications suggest that, consistent with the old friends hypothesis of immunology, which posits that exposure to a diverse range of microorganisms during development reduces allergy and autoimmune disease risk, living with animals, including cats, may have immunological benefits, particularly for children. Your cat is not just sharing your home. It is sharing your biology. We are in the middle of a golden age of cat science. The past decade has seen more rigorous, methodologically sophisticated research on feline cognition, behavior, and biology than the previous century combined. And the questions currently being pursued in laboratories around the world are genuinely extraordinary. Let me walk you through the frontier areas. Dr. Suzanne Schatz at Lund University is leading a multi-year project called Meowsic, the study of human cat communication, that aims to create a comprehensive acoustic and prosodic map of cat vocalizations in relation to their communicative contexts. Using sophisticated machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of hours of recorded cat-human interactions, the project aims to build a computational model that can predict with high accuracy what a cat is communicating from its vocalization alone. In essence, a cat translator. The team has already made progress on distinguishing positive from negative emotional states and on identifying vocalization patterns specific to particular types of interaction: feeding requests, attention requests, distress. The full picture may be only 5 to 10 years away. The Cat Genome Project, a comprehensive effort to sequence and annotate the full domestic cat genome, was substantially completed in the early 2010s. Since then, researchers have been working to identify the genetic variants that influence behavior, personality, and disease susceptibility in cats. Dr. Leslie Lyons at the University of Missouri, one of the leading figures in feline genomics, has identified numerous genetic markers associated with specific feline diseases and physical traits. The next frontier is behavioral genomics, identifying the variants that influence temperament, social orientation, and stress reactivity. This research has implications that go beyond cat welfare. The domestic cat, because of the accessibility of large numbers of individuals with known pedigrees and the relative simplicity of managing cats in research contexts, compared to wild felids, may serve as an important model system for understanding the genetics of social behavior in felids generally, including the big cats whose wild populations are under severe conservation pressure. Until very recently, most cognitive research on domestic animals focused on dogs. Dogs were considered more tractable experimental subjects. They would readily engage with experimental tasks, come when called, sit still. Cats were considered difficult, too independent, unwilling to follow instructions. But researchers like Dr. Adam Miklosi at Etzlorund University in Budapest, who has spent decades studying dog cognition, have begun to systematically investigate cat cognition using paradigms adapted to feline sensibilities, and the results are illuminating. Cats have demonstrated the ability to understand object permanence at a level comparable to dogs and human infants. They can follow human pointing gestures to locate hidden objects. They show evidence of causal reasoning, understanding that if a box rattles, it is because there is something inside it. They can distinguish between humans who have helped them and humans who have not, and they show clear preferences for helpful individuals. Perhaps most remarkably, a 2021 study by Saho Takagi and colleagues at Kyoto University found that cats respond to their own names differently from other words spoken by their owners, including words with similar phonetic structure. The cats did not necessarily come when called, but they clearly differentiated their name from other sounds. They know their own names. One of the most practically important frontiers in cat science is the development of reliable, objective measures of feline emotional welfare. Currently, assessing whether a cat is experiencing chronic stress, pain, or diminished well-being relies largely on subjective behavioral observation by owners and veterinarians, a process that is highly variable and often inaccurate. Researchers at multiple institutions are working to identify objective biomarkers of feline welfare, cortisol levels, inflammatory cytokines, microbiome composition that could be assessed through minimally invasive testing and used to give cat owners and veterinarians an objective window into the animal's internal experience. The feline Grommet scale, developed by Dr. Paulo Stigall and colleagues at the University of Montreal, is an early step in this direction, a validated, standardized method for assessing pain in cats from facial expression alone, comparable to the pain assessment tools used in pre-verbal human infants. The horizon is a future in which caring for a cat's emotional health can be as evidence-based and reliable as caring for its physical health. Urban ecology is a rapidly growing field, and the domestic cat is one of its central subjects. Large-scale GPS tracking studies, including citizen science projects in multiple countries, are generating unprecedented data on how cats navigate urban environments, how they interact with wildlife, how they share territory, and how their behavioral patterns differ between urban, suburban, and rural contexts. This data has direct policy implications. It informs decisions about feral cat management, trap-neuter return programs, wildlife protection measures, and urban planning. It also contributes to our broader understanding of how highly adaptable synanthropic species, animals that thrive in human-modified environments, shape the ecology of the increasingly urbanized world. We are approaching the end of our journey. In the final section, I want to bring everything together: the science, the evolutionary history, the emotional depth, the ecological complexity, and leave you with something that I genuinely believe will reframe how you see not just cats, but your own place in the natural world. Don't go anywhere. We've been on a long journey together today. We started with a provocative claim that your cat treats you as a large, weird cat. And from that opening, we've traveled through evolutionary biology, sensory neuroscience, acoustic communication, attachment theory, applied physics, conservation ecology, parasitology, and the leading edge of cognitive research. I want to spend this last stretch weaving it all together, because I think there is a coherent picture here, a profound and somewhat surprising picture that only becomes visible when you step back and see all of the pieces at once. Here is what I think the science of cats is really telling us. We live in an era that tends to draw very sharp lines: human and animal, wild and domestic, nature and culture, predator and companion. These lines feel natural, even obvious. But the cat refuses all of them. The cat is wild and domestic simultaneously. It is predator and companion. It is calculating and affectionate. It is independent and bonded. It is an apex predator that chooses on its own terms to share your home, and a creature that has evolved over millennia, a communication system partly designed to speak to you specifically. That's extraordinary. It's worth slowing down and actually absorbing it. No other animal in human experience is quite like this. Dogs gave up their wildness for our company. They became something genuinely different through domestication. Horses, cattle, pigs, all profoundly transformed. But the cat held on to its original self while stepping into the human world. It made the choice to be here, or rather, it made a series of choices over thousands of generations that amounted to choosing us. And it did so without surrendering what it fundamentally is. There is something philosophically important in that. Think about what the slow blink means now that you understand the science behind it. When a cat closes its eyes at you, when it makes itself momentarily blind in your presence, it is performing an act of extraordinary trust. It is saying, I am safe enough here with you to let my guard down. For an apex predator operating on survival instincts millions of years older than our civilization, that is no small thing. Think about what the kneading means. This is an animal whose ancestors were solitary killers, coursing through ancient landscapes before the first human city existed. And it is pressing its paws into your lap in a gesture that originates in the safety of nursing, the earliest and most fundamental experience of security it has ever had. It is in that moment, experiencing something in your presence that neurologically echoes the safety of its mother. Think about the purr, not just as a sound, but as a biological healing mechanism, humming at the exact frequencies that repair bone and tissue, frequencies that your own body can detect, that lower your blood pressure and release oxytocin, that slow your nervous system down into something closer to rest. And think about the alien sensory world it inhabits, the ultraviolet patterns, the ultrasonic frequencies, the magnetic currents, the chemical library of scent messages. Your cat is perceiving layers of reality that you are blind to. It is living simultaneously in your world, and in a world you cannot access. In that sense, it is genuinely, literally, the most alien presence in your daily life. Now, let me ask the larger question. What does this mean for you? I think one of the gifts of deeply understanding any other species is that it recalibrates your sense of your own specialness in a good way. For most of human history, we operated on the assumption that consciousness, emotion, memory, communication, and social bonds were uniquely or predominantly human qualities. The more we study other animals, and the cat is an excellent example, the more we discover that we were wrong about this in important ways. Emotion is not uniquely human. Memory is not uniquely human. Social bonding is not uniquely human. The desire for safety, warmth, and connection, that, too, is ancient. It precedes us by hundreds of millions of years. What this means is that we are not as alone as we sometimes feel. The interior lives of the animals around us, the cats, the dogs, the birds, the entire living world, are far richer, far more complex, far more continuous with our own experience than our cultural assumptions have typically acknowledged. You are not the only one on this planet who feels. You are not the only one who bonds. You are not the only one who dreams. Your cat dreams of hunting, but it also chooses to sleep against your side. Think about that. Let's do a quick tour of the mind-blown moments, because they deserve to be gathered together. 1. Your cat does not mentally categorize you as a human. It treats you as a large, unusually social fellow cat. This is not an insult. It is one of the deepest compliments a cat can give. 2. All domestic cats trace their ancestry to a single population of wildcats in the Fertile Crescent 10,000 years ago. Your cat is, genetically, a wildcat that voluntarily entered the human world. 3. Cats can see ultraviolet light. They can hear frequencies 4 times beyond human range. They possess a second nose, a magnetic sense, and whiskers that function as precision tactile instruments. They inhabit a sensory world that is genuinely alien to ours. 4. The purr operates at the precise frequency range used in medical vibration therapy to heal bones, reduce inflammation, and manage pain. Your cat may be healing you when it sits on your chest. 5. Meowing, one of the most recognizable sounds in human domestic life, is a communication system cats developed specifically to interact with humans. They don't meow at each other. They meow at you. 6. Cats have a rich emotional life, confirmed by both behavioral and neurobiological evidence. They experience something analogous to fear, pleasure, grief, and attachment. They dream. They remember. 7. The majority of cats form a psychologically measurable secure attachment bond with their human caregivers, at rates comparable to human infants and higher than dogs. Most cats are not just using you for food. Most cats are attached to you in the deepest sense the science can measure. 8. Cats may possess a biological magnetic compass, a magnetoreceptive sense that helps explain their extraordinary ability to navigate home across vast distances. 9. The cat's riding reflex, its ability to land on its feet, is a solution to a problem in rotational mechanics so elegant that it was studied by aerospace engineers designing attitude control systems for satellites. 10. Free-roaming cats are among the most ecologically impactful invasive species on Earth, responsible for billions of wildlife deaths annually and dozens of extinctions. This complexity is part of the full picture. Loving cats means engaging with this honestly. 11. A parasite carried by cats, Toxoplasma gondii, infects approximately 1/3 of all humans and may, according to ongoing research, produce subtle neurological effects. Your cat may be influencing your brain in ways you cannot detect. I want to close with something personal. We live in a world that is moving very fast, a world of screens and notifications, of deadlines and performance and productivity metrics. A world where it is easy to feel disconnected from each other, from the natural world, from the animal reality of our own bodies. And yet, in more than 600 million homes around the planet, a wildcat, a genuine, barely modified wildcat, has chosen to sit down beside a human being and close its eyes. That happened today? It is happening right now, in millions of places simultaneously. A creature from an ancient lineage of perfect predators, with senses we cannot access, and a cognitive world we are only beginning to understand, is choosing the company of a human. Not because it has been bred to need us, not because it is incapable of surviving without us, because at some point in the deep past, the wildcats that were least afraid of us discovered something. Maybe just warmth, maybe just safety, maybe something we don't have the science to name yet, and they stayed. Somewhere in that decision, in that 10,000-year-old, still ongoing choice, is something that I find genuinely moving. An act of improbable trust between two very different kinds of minds. A connection that transcends the categories we use to separate nature from culture, wild from domestic, animal from person. That cat on your couch is not just a pet. It is a bridge to the wild world. It is a carrier of ancient evolutionary wisdom. It is a healer. It is a communicator. It is a physicist. It is a mystery we are only just beginning to understand. And tonight, when it blinks slowly at you from across the room, you will know, with the full weight of everything we've covered today, exactly what it is saying. If you made it to the end of this 210-minute journey, you are extraordinary. Genuinely. Most people will not sit with an idea long enough to go this deep. You did. Please share this video with everyone you know who has a cat, or who used to have a cat, or who loves cats from afar. Because the science in this video changes things. It gives context and dignity to a relationship that millions of people have, but that most people have never fully understood. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment with the one fact from this video that hit you hardest. I read them all, and I respond to as many as I can. And tell me, where in the world are you? What time is it where you are? I started this video asking that question, and I want to end it asking it again, because I genuinely think there is something beautiful about the idea of people from every corner of the planet, at every hour of the day and night, learning together about these extraordinary animals that share our world. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your curiosity. Go be kind to a cat.